Shalom and welcome to yet another episode in our series called Faith Journeys with God in the Land. Today we're at the site of Hippos, or Sussita, located on the Golan Heights. Shalom on a beautiful morning here in Israel. This is a relatively new excavation called Hippos, or Sussita. It's a word that actually means horse. I'm walking here around some of the ruins. There are no less than 6 Byzantine churches, which mean they date to a time period between really the 4th, 5th, 6th century AD, about there. And you can see behind me a number of pillars that have been restored and structures. There's even a wine press, and you can see just how amazing the excavations are here. Now, this site is located on the southeast corner of the lake, and what we're going to do is walk down towards the lake to get a good view and then share the story of Mark chapter 5. Now, this story is quite impressive because it involves Jesus coming to the other side, and what that meant for the disciples when he says, "Hey guys, let's go to the other side." They're crossing from the west side, most likely Capernaum, and Jesus says, "Hey, let's go to the other side," and they're probably thinking, "Are you kidding me? Don't you know that this is Gentile infested?" And certainly that's the case. The exception was a site called Gamla, which was a Jewish site 6 miles due east of the northern tip of the Sea of Galilee. In fact, there's a first century synagogue there. But when we take a look at the location of this encounter that Jesus would have with a very challenged man, physically and spiritually, we call him a demoniac. One of the texts says the Gadarene, the other is Gerazine. This was certainly the area of a few other Decopolis cities. And when we understand the location, and not only that, but his condition of this man, he was out scraping himself, he was crying out loud, he was challenged physically because he was demon-possessed. And then he sees Jesus, says something of a messianic nature to him, and Jesus does what he does best. He does not turn anyone away, but he befriends this guy. And in the end, Jesus exorcises the demons. Look at these ruins, by the way, behind me. These are quite impressive. Basaltic stone. Again, this is an example of how extensive the excavation has been, and these ruins of this Decopolis city. And perhaps this demoniac was familiar with this site. No doubt he was. But on this occasion, Jesus exorcises the demons, and the demons go out of this man and end up in the wild boar or pigs, and they then go running down the cliff. In fact, just below us is an area where most likely that took place. Now, further north on this eastern side, there's a place called Kersey, although there's no cliff there adjacent to the shoreline. Kersey is a Byzantine traditional site for Mark 5. It doesn't really matter where it happened, but it probably happened a little further south than Kersey, as we continue to walk down with a great view of the lake. But this man is now free from demons. The demons go into the pigs, and guess what? The community, the residents of this area are not too happy. Why? Number one, pigs were most likely what was sacrificed in a ritual way, and of course they ate pigs. So this was an economic devastation that Jesus now caused, because all the demons are in the pigs and they go running down into the lake, and the crowd is not happy. What did Jesus do? He's upsetting our economy. And yet, really the whole purpose of the story is the transformation that came to this man. By the way, there's a smaller Odeon. It's called a theater, I should say. That's the term for it. There's another new theater that's been excavated further on the other site. But now look at this view, and certainly this is indeed in the region where Jesus then tells him something very important, and I think this is the gist of this faith journey devotion. Because this man wants to go with Jesus, and Jesus says, no, go home and tell your neighbors, your friends, your family what I did for you. This man was charged now with telling his story to others. What a remarkable new purpose for this transformed man. And I think what happened is that he indeed, with great excitement, because he was now transformed, he's no longer cutting himself with rocks and screaming out in demonic voices, and yet he's now transformed, he's a new person, and he's no doubt telling others what Christ did for him just then and there. You know, in our faith journey, that's what we are also invited to do. As we take a look at that lake behind us and understand that our purpose in our faith journey is to tell others simply what evangelism is, and I heard this from someone else, and I love the phrase, something like outreach or evangelism is the outflow of the inflow of the overflow of what Christ has done for us. The outflow of the inflow resulting in the overflow of love and grace and goodness that Christ has already offered us and displayed to us in calling us to be disciples and followers of Christ. And now we are to overflow that goodness to others so that people see Christ in us. In fact, Francis of Assisi said, share the good news of the kingdom, and if necessary, use words. Well, there's certainly a point where we indeed need to use words in sharing the message. But could it be through our actions and our attitudes that we display? We are showing the overflow of Christ's grace that transforms us in our faith walk with Him. So really a great story from Mark 5. Read it on your own. Look for those little nuggets of truth where this man went from a state of desperation and hopelessness to a transformed man, not only physically, but more important, spiritually. This man met and encountered Jesus and became a new person. That's what Paul says, right, in 2 Corinthians, that the old is gone, the new has come. And our faith journey involves living out the newness of what Christ has done for us. He's given His life for us. We are now receiving Him through faith. We're living for Him, and we're allowing the reign and rule of God in our lives. That's what the kingdom is all about. And isn't it interesting that centuries later, after this man's transformation, again, this site has no less than half a dozen churches. In the 4th, 5th, 6th century, this place was was one church after another. In fact, a couple new inscriptions were just discovered, and it reveals their acknowledgement of Christ as Savior. So be transformed today and renewed and encouraged with this story of transformation that took place right below us as we share this from one of these Decopolis cities called Hippos. Until next time, shalom.